Okay, lads, lasses, and the rest of the masses, welcome back to another retroactive Feeling Blue. Now, this one's not as retroactive as usual. Usually I would record these the day after. I am actually recording this later in the night. I just wanted to give myself some time to not only spend some time with my other half, as it's Valentine's Day as I'm recording this, but also just to kind of collect my thoughts. Because, again, I'm going to disappoint some of you by not giving you the reaction, the over the top doomer mindset that a lot of other content creators on this platform and on Twitter and on TikTok are going to give you. Now, I'm going to look at things realistically. I'm going to look at things objectively, as I always do. But first of all, before we get into the points, let's do the bingo card as we always do, because I know people look forward to this. Didn't get a clean sheet, and I had this on here twice for some reason. Didn't get a cuckoo goal, didn't get Cole or Noni striker, but we did kind of see, Palmer and Nkunku kind of interchanging in that 9 role. So I'm gonna take this off. Oh, that's weird. It's turned the wrong color. There we go. No goals for any of our teams. I could take this last week's scapegoat thing off like so many different times, but I don't think that was really it. A game of two halves. I don't know if this was particularly a game of two halves. It was kind of a game of the first quarter and then the other 3 quarters, so I'm not going to call this. Same thing with the rest of these. Fight breaks out. We did get a mini spat, so I'll do this. Player booked for Descent. We got Enzo getting booked for Descent. We got VAR cost us. Now, I'm going to talk about this later, but I'll be taking this off. Yeah, Kukurea got booed. Someone scores a worldie. I'll class this because Mitoma's goal is genuinely wonderful. I'll give him his credit there. Correct prediction. I didn't correctly predict this in the slightest. But there we go. Cole, but no goal. We didn't get this either because, in fact, it was actually Palmer who was spurring the chances that we got, admittedly, which is kind of funny. He doesn't usually do that. We did get this on commentary as always. Grass is always greener as always. No balloon celebration and no Bob Marley chants. We don't get bingo today, but there we go. Now, I'll bring this forward, and I'm going to talk about some few things. Now, I usually do this, you know the way I've done. If you've watched the channel before, you know how I do this. I take 7 points, I talk about them, I usually get the bad things out of the way first, and then kind of talk about the good things. I have not actually pre-planned my thoughts out for this, so I'm going to kind of ramble for a bit and just see kind of what happens. I think, for the most part, we should be focusing on the fact that this was a very, very bad performance from us, so nothing is going to go into this good or medium box today, because there isn't anything worth actually talking about in a good light. I don't think any player could walk off that pitch feeling like they did themselves justice. So yeah, we're not going to be talking about anything positive, but I'm still going to be real. I'm still going to be, I'm not going to be over the top. Now, I think the first thing that I want to talk about, just because I know people will say I'm making excuses if I don't get this out of the way first, is the referees. Now, I think that this is an utter joke of a few of the decisions, and I don't think that this is a case of, oh, the referees screwed us over and we would have won if the referees didn't make these calls. That's not what I'm saying. We still would have lost this game without the referees, but they were very, very poor, and it's like punching down on the homeless man, as it were, in these situations where they're already 1 up, or they're not. They go 1 up very quickly after we get a goal disallowed for literally nothing. There's 2 hands on the back. There's not a push. There is no way in hell that a 6'3" to 6'4" centre back should be falling to the floor as quickly as that guy does. I don't actually know which one it was. I don't know if it was Van Hecker or Veltman or whoever, Webster. I'm not sure which one it was. There should be absolutely no way that a 6'3" centre back should be flopping on the floor like that when he's been pushed by someone that's half his size. It's an absolutely embarrassing decision to disallow a goal for it. A very well worked goal, and a goal that would have given us a lot of momentum in this game and possibly would have spurred us on to win, or maybe even get some kind of points from this, right? The thing that pisses me off is that happens, obviously. They go up the other end. They go up the other end and score with Mitoma. Very, very good goal, as I said. I'll talk about certain players in that move in a little bit here. And that's fine, and that would have been 1-1, and that's still a result. That's still kind of a scoreline that we can actually build off of and kind of do things with. As soon as we go 1-0 down, our mentality drops, and again, I'll talk about that again in a little bit. mentality drops, and then we get this other call, which is really dodgy as well. In the fact that Welbeck, from at least the replays that I watched, was clearly in an offside position when the ball was played into him in the box. Even though he doesn't actually get a touch on the ball, he's still interfering with play, and I'm really not sure why that's been disallowed, or not been disallowed rather. They obviously get the rebound, they score, and then the other thing that the other thing that bugs me is that there's in the third goal there's a foul on Colwill, and you can say it's soft, you can say he needs to be stronger, but if that's not a foul, then the one on whichever centre back it was in the box for our first goal is not a foul either. And the consistency is what bugs me, because it's the exact same decision, and there is two different ways, and the VAR has confirmed both ways that it's fine. And the thing which really bugged me about VAR in this game is that it didn't seem like it was actually there, and it felt more so like they were kind of just going, yeah, sure, we've checked it, go ahead, and just doing the referee decisions anyway. Because when have you ever seen VAR respond this quickly to any decision? Never in any Premier League game has it been this fast. It was really weird, and I was sitting here thinking, like, have they even bothered checking it? Have they? Because the commentary barely even mentioned that the VAR had checked it. It was just like, oh, yep, check and done, over, for all of these calls. And it's kind of frustrating when it's, as I said, when it's in a situation where we're in a big poor bit of form and we kind of need some protection from the referees, and we're getting the complete opposite. It's just really upsetting. But yeah, so I'm getting that out of the way first, because I know if I speak about this and don't talk about the other things, people are going to say, oh, I'm just blaming the referees. I'm not. I'm just saying that it compounds onto the misery that we already have when these decisions go against us, and it's just sad. Personally, I will say I don't think that the foul on Colwill is actually a foul for the third goal, but as I said, it has to be a consistent thing in the fact that if that's not a foul, like I believe it's not, then the Enzo one is also not a foul, and we should have had the first goal of the game. We should have been ahead. We should have been able to use that momentum to try and actually win this game, and unfortunately, we did not get that opportunity. Now, let's talk about some players in particular I think just had genuinely horrific games. I think the first one is Chalobah. We spoke about this briefly with the Matoma goal. He gets beaten way too easily, and if Tosin was on the pitch, I don't think it happens. I said in my pre-match stream that I have found this decision to play Chalobah over Tosin rather peculiar and rather weird, and I said we'll see if this gamble pays off, pretty much. It did not. He was genuinely atrocious, not just for that one moment, but for the majority of the game, getting dragged out of position all the time. Just never really tracking his man, making Gusto do extra work at times as well. I think Gusto had a little bit of an improved game, admittedly. I will say that. I don't think he was good, but I think he was improved from what he has been this season, which is kind of saying something, how terrible he's been all year. But yeah, combination of Chalobah. Also, I'm going to put Colwill in here as well because of the third goal. It's not the... If he feels he's fouled, I understand that, right? I understand he feels like he's fouled and he wants to go down and try and stop the play. But as soon as you do not get that foul, you get up to your feet and you run back into position, because the goal comes from where he would have been if he wasn't on the floor. And that's just utterly not defensible, in my opinion. Like, you cannot be doing that, especially as a player that has obviously campaigned for himself to be the captain and be leading by example. It's just not good enough. It doesn't set a good example to the other players in the team either, and it's just embarrassing, honestly. So that's those ones. I'm gonna give a 0.2. Let me talk about. I could compound on Palmer and say I don't think Palmer was very good, because he basically, the only two chances we got in the game were his and he fluffed them both. But I think that's a bit harsh considering we didn't get very many chances. I think our forward line in general was just completely not there. So I'm going to put the attack as a whole. I think our attack is so blunted now. And I don't think this is particularly the player's fault. I don't think this is particularly the manager's fault either. I think this is a big issue that we've seen, and I spoke about this in the last one. It's just injuries, man. Injuries have absolutely ruined this club from top to bottom, and people are going to talk about the sporting directors, they're going to talk about the ownership, they're going to talk about the managers, and they need to, in my opinion anyway, they need to kind of look inward and just actually understand what's happened to this team in the space of this period, right? When did our form start dipping? It was as soon as Wesley Fofana got injured and started getting more injuries to players like Lavia, and Badiashile got injured. And now we're getting into this stage where we've got Jackson injured. Our backup striker and Giyu is also injured. We get Madueke coming off injured in this game, which really dented our momentum. And I will say, actually, I said no one was going to get in the good box. I'm going to be putting Madueke in the medium box, because I think him going off was one of the actually, I say I'm not going to put anyone in the good box. I have got an idea of someone who I'm going to put in the good box, actually. Madueke was the only threat in this game in our attack line. He was genuinely actually really good on the right-hand side when he had his first few minutes, and obviously he was actually being able to beat not Tyreek George. He was either Tariq Lamptey, is who I'm trying to say. I had George on my brain, because he's also a winger. He was actually able to beat Tariq Lamptey and make some inroads there down that right hand side and actually make things happen. Unfortunately, the rest of our attack was utterly woeful. Sancho just slow, has no pace, wasn't able to beat his man today. Neto, when he was up against his opposite man on the left-hand side, he doesn't really do much on the left-hand side. I've spoken about how I don't think he's very good on that side. When he moved over to the right-hand side, when Madueke came off, he looked even worse. Again, Lamptey absolutely locked him up, which is the similar story that we saw in the FA Cup, that he just really... Sometimes you have those players that are just boogeymen for you, and I assume that's exactly what that was, because Neto was just not good at all. But yes, as I was saying, with injuries... Because this is the thing which is really detracting from this team, is the fact that our first choice centre-back in Wesley Fofana is not here anymore. Our first choice forward in Jackson is not here anymore, and it absolutely shows. And I think I want to put out a point now and say that I hope that all the people in my comments and all the people online and people who tweet at me and stuff like that were calling for Jackson's head and saying he's not good enough for Chelsea, and that, oh, we're terrible with him on the pitch and we need to sign a new striker. I really hope that you have looked inwards at this period where we've not had him for 2 games and realised how utterly toothless we look without him on the pitch. We look so poor, and it's not even an understatement to say that we genuinely look half the team when he's not in it, because he is so important to our front line, not just because he's an actual striker and he's a player that will actually run in behind and take defenders with him, but the fact that he brings other people into play. And it's really shows that obviously Nkunku or Palmer, whoever's been playing in this false 9 position, cannot do that as well as Jackson can. They cannot help us in the transition as much as Jackson can. They cannot just get us out of situations where we're being pressed as good as Jackson can. And it's really annoying, because people will talk about this like, oh, but other teams have injuries and it doesn't affect them. But the thing is, right, the injuries that other teams have got so far aren't as impactful as the 2 that we have. This is like if you took Mohamed Salah and you took Van Dijk out of the Liverpool team. This is like if you took Gvardiol and, I don't know, Haaland out of their team. How toothless they would be and how terrible at the back they would be, or how much more impacted they would be if those 2 weren't on the pitch. They could do the same thing with Saliba and, hate to say it, but Kai Havertz, or Ødegaard, one of those players who kind of plays up top for them. In the top teams, they would look utterly toothless as well. And it's just... It bugs me, because it's a lot of people are going to say, oh, this is poor recruitment and all this nonsense. And it's like, how can you prepare for both of your 2 strikers getting injured in the same game? Like, you can't prepare for that. There's no amount of buying new strikers and stuff that will prepare for that type of impact. Like, even if we bought a new profile striker, they probably wouldn't have been able to settle in that quickly. They probably would not have been able to replace the energy and the tenacity of a player like Jackson. They probably wouldn't have been able to, as I said, drag us up the pitch as much as he can. And even when he wasn't on the pitch, I think Giyu was actually doing quite a good job after Jackson got injured. And then obviously he unfortunately gets injured as well. And it's a big pile on of just horrible situations that have happened to us over and over again. And it's just one of those things where we just kind of have to accept it. The problem is, like, there's no real solution other than trying to get like a free agent striker. I've genuinely seen people, like, not even kidding, I've seen people calling for us to bring Diego Costa back because he's a free agent. I think people that are saying that are utterly stupid. I'm not even gonna go into how ridiculous that sounds and how stupid that sounds, considering we saw him come back a few years later and play for Wolves and he was a shadow of his former self. But yeah, I think that it just goes to show, like, everything that I've been saying throughout this year about how Jackson is so important to the team and how we can't take him out of the team and how well off team functions when he's in it, is just coming true. And I feel like I'm being proven right every game that he's not here. Obviously, we've got to wait until the end of April or somewhere around there for him to actually be available. It sounds like Guiu seems to be an injury that might be a very, very long time. Luckily, the one solace we can take from this is that Fofana looks like he's coming back soon. And again, even one player I don't think I even mentioned. Obviously, Lavia being injured is a big part of our midfield. That big part of us being able to play through pressure, and it kind of shows how bad we are at playing through pressure now in terms of being able to transition through the midfield and kind of play it into into risky places and get out the other side. It's something that he was really, really good at when he was playing for us, and he's not here anymore. And the other midfielders in the team can't really do it that well, and we get other players having to drop deep like Palmer and Nkunku to try and get through that situation. It just brings us further and further back, and it's upsetting, because I feel like even though we've been in poor form, I feel like with the addition of Jackson, with the addition of someone like Lavia, with the addition of someone like Wesley Fofana, we'd be doing so much better. I don't think it would be as much of a over the top reaction to like, oh, we're gonna do terribly. I think there are still teams in this league that we will very comfortably beat, just because of the nature of a lot of our players are very high quality. I think that we will need to, if possible, try and settle on a consistent starting 11 from now on, though. And I think one that kind of speaks out to me is to immediately put in a player that has a lot to prove and a player that will always try 100%, because he's a player that, again, has a lot to prove. And he's the only player that I'm going to be putting in the good box, because I think that he is kind of the only positive that we can kind of take out from this game. And it's Tyreek George. I mentioned him earlier. I think he came on and had a pretty decent cameo on that right side. He gave us a bit more penetration than we had for the entire time with him not on the pitch, and I feel like if he had a lot more time to work with, he would have done better. It felt like we kind of, with the addition of him and James coming on the pitch, it felt like we actually had an out ball. Like, James could play a ball over the top for George and he'd actually run onto it. He was one of the only players that was actually trying to make runs and make things happen, rather than dropping deep and trying to get on the ball like our other two wingers were doing. And I feel like, as a player, again, who's very, very young, he's come out of our academy, he has a lot to prove, he's a player that wants to play, obviously, and he's not going to be as dejected as a lot of these other players are. I feel like you need to give him more of a chance. I think that he gives us, again, like that outball and that running that we kind of missed. And again, admittedly, Madueke was doing a lot of that in the first half before he got injured and taken off. It just felt like Neto and especially Sancho, because Sancho's never going to run in behind. Neto tried to do those over the top runs at some point, but like, it's just, again, that was when he was on the left hand side and we had a bit more of control of the game. We were creating a bit more chances, and it kind of allowed us, when we play wide and we play in behind, we can actually, even without having a box presence or having a striker, we can at least then kind of go for the cutbacks and try and get the ball back to, for example, Palmer, who had the few opportunities in the first bit of the game. I think for the most part, we started really, really well. We started quite confidently. We started being able to play through pressure, and we started actually putting together a lot of good passing moves and playing through the transition and getting Madueke up high and trying to getting us into those attacking positions, but not taking the two chances with Palmer, obviously skying a few and us not getting that, and then it just went downhill from there. Obviously the injury to Madueke, I think, is genuinely the turning point in the game, where he goes off injured and the crowd goes completely flat, and then yeah, from there it was just down and down and down, and it didn't really get any better after half time. It's kind of a shame, because we've seen Enzo Maresca in sometimes being able to put kind of miracles together and make us come out from the second half and play well. Sometimes we come out from the second half and looked absolutely woeful. That's definitely something he needs to improve on. I will say that I think that he needs to start making more drastic changes, and I'll put him in the bad box simply because I don't think the changes he made today were drastic enough. I think that he needs to take a gamble on another player, in my opinion. I think he just needs to shake things up, maybe play Amugu for a game or something, maybe bring Anselmino into the back line if because God knows Chalobah and Cole will absolutely need that help. He needs to change something in the system in terms of maybe, as I kind of spoken about before, maybe we play Gusto more as the high and wide player so he can get up and kind of overlap rather than playing inverted. I felt like him playing today, he didn't feel particularly threatening. He was good in the first like 20 to 25 minutes before Madueke came off. I think he was decent. He was actually bursting down the right hand side. He got that opportunity to run down the wing, and we saw how good he was when he was able to do that, and obviously he could put the ball in. But that was the only time we saw it, and we saw it once and then never again. And it wasn't like we were ever going to see it again. I think we need to have a real kind of talk and a real kind of reevaluation of this system and how it works against specific teams, because it is a very, very fluid system. It is a very good system when it comes to breaking through high presses and things like that. But when you have teams like Brighton who are smart and they will try and transition on you, they will they're not going to, obviously they're not a team that likes to sit back or anything. I'm not insinuating that, but they are a team that when they defend, they get forward quickly, and we really didn't react quick enough to half of their counter attacks, and they kind of sat in and they made it difficult for us to break down. Obviously we had a lot of possession. We had about 71% possession, I believe, in this game, and only had one shot on target, which is, did we even, actually, in fact, I don't think we even had a shot on target. I don't think any of the ones actually counted as on target. So there's that. And I said, I'm not going to be too, even though I'm negative, and rightfully so, I think we should be negative in terms of this overall game. I don't think we played well enough. Well, as I said, we were very toothless in attack. We were very naive in defence. I don't think this is another game where we need to be throwing our toys out of the pram and saying, oh, we need to sack this person and sack this person, get a new manager, do the, just, it's tiring. I spoke about this before. I spoke about this in the TikTok that I put out like last week, how tired I am of having that same conversation with people every single week. That it's like, oh, we need to sack this person and this person, when 2 months ago we were in the second, in the top two, and everyone was saying that we have our club back. They were chanting it in the stadiums, we've got our Chelsea back, and now 2 months later they're chanting we want our Chelsea back. And yeah, it's just, it's embarrassing, it's childish, and I'm not going to engage with it in personally. I'm just not going to be that type of person. But yeah, we move on to the next game. I don't actually know what the next game is. I should check that actually. I think we've got some tough games coming up against big teams, if I remember correctly. Let me just quickly check that. And then hopefully, as I said, we do usually play slightly better against big teams. We've got Aston Villa next on Saturday, so obviously I'll be doing my pre-match preview before the game. As always, I'll be doing that as a live stream. And as I said, I've got a video coming up. I'm not sure when it's going to come out. It should be either, I don't think it will be tomorrow. I think it'll probably be the day after tomorrow. Or when I put this, I'll be putting this out tomorrow, so it'll probably be tomorrow, maybe. I'm not sure. It'll be in 2 days' time after Valentine's, if that makes sense. But yeah, those are just my thoughts for this game. Leave your thoughts down below in the comments if you want to. I'll probably engage with a lot of you in the comments down there. As I said, I don't want to be too negative. I'm a person that's always try and be an optimist, but this was just a negative performance, and it's kind of, again, it's just kind of sad seeing our team perform this way. We'll try and get over it. We'll keep the blue flag flying high as ever. Come on, you Blues.